The real game. Most people think investing is about money, but that is only the surface. The deeper truth is that investing is about control over your life. At the start, money decides almost everything before you even get a vote. It decides what you eat, where you live, and how well you sleep. It decides what jobs you tolerate and which dreams you keep delaying. Then slowly, if you make the right moves, money becomes less threatening. At first, investing does not make you rich, it gives breathing room. After that, it starts giving you options you never had before. Then it begins buying back pieces of your time and attention. And eventually, if you keep climbing, it can buy real freedom. But at the highest levels, investing stops being about getting rich. It becomes about responsibility, legacy, and the kind of person you become. So this is your life at every level of investing, from survival to legacy. Not just the numbers that look impressive inside a portfolio app. Not just 10,000, 100,000, or $1 million. I mean what your actual day feels like at each stage. How you think when money is tight and how that thinking changes. What stresses you, what tempts you, and what mistakes become expensive. What opportunities appear once money is no longer constantly chasing you. And what each level must teach you before the next one makes sense. The biggest mistake is trying to live like someone at level 7, while your habits, savings, and risk control are still stuck at level 2. Every level has a lesson, and each lesson protects the next level. If you skip the lesson, the market or life usually makes you pay. So start where you actually are, and climb from there with honesty. Level 0, no investing, only surviving. Level 0 is where most people start, even if nobody admits it. At this level, you are not really investing in any meaningful way. You are simply surviving the next bill, the next week, the next problem. Money comes in, and most of it is already gone before payday arrives. Rent hits first, and suddenly the paycheck feels much smaller. Then food, petrol, insurance, debt, subscriptions, and random expenses pile on. Something breaks, and a normal month turns into a financial emergency. At this level, life feels reactive, like you're always responding late. You do not make money decisions from calm, because calm is rare. You make them from pressure, fear, embarrassment, and short-term survival. You might know you should invest, because everyone online says so. But investing feels like something for people with spare money and space. Every dollar already has a job before it even reaches you. A small problem becomes a crisis because there is no margin. A car repair is not annoying, it feels like a disaster. A late payment is not inconvenient, it feels personal and embarrassing. A medical bill does not just cost money, it can ruin the month. So the goal is not to become a genius investor overnight. The real goal at level 0 is to stop the financial bleeding. Before you chase returns, you need control over the basics. You need to know exactly what comes in every month. You need to know exactly what goes out without lying to yourself. And you need to see where money disappears quietly without permission. Chaos feels normal at this level, but chaos is incredibly expensive. Control is the first investment because it creates the space to climb. Level 1, the first emergency buffer. Level 1 is when you build your first real emergency buffer. It is not glamorous and nobody claps when you do it. Nobody brags online about having $1,000 sitting in savings. But this level changes daily life more than people expect. The first emergency buffer is not about beating the market. It is about dignity, calm, and not feeling instantly cornered. When something goes wrong, you do not have to panic immediately. You do not have to borrow from a mate and feel awkward. You do not have to swipe a credit card for every surprise. You do not spend the whole night calculating whether you can survive. Life may still feel tight because the buffer is only small, but it no longer feels completely out of control every single day. This is the first lesson investing teaches before any portfolio matters. The best return is not always financial, especially at the beginning. Sometimes the best return is simply being able to sleep. A cash buffer might earn almost nothing when you measure interest, but emotionally it pays a massive dividend every time life happens. It gives you sleep, which makes every other decision easier. It gives you patience, which saves you from desperate choices. And it gives you better judgment when pressure starts rising. Desperate people make expensive decisions because they need relief immediately. Desperate people accept bad deals because bad options feel better than none. Your buffer protects you from the worst version of yourself. This level is boring, but boring is exactly why it works. Once there is a floor underneath you, you can finally climb. Level 2. Your first real investments. Level 2 is when you start investing consistently, not perfectly. Maybe it is ETFs, simple, boring, diversified, and easy to repeat. Maybe it is super, slowly building in the background for decades. Maybe it is shares, where you start learning how businesses compound. Maybe it is Bitcoin or another asset you understand deeply. The vehicle matters, but the habit matters far more at first. You stop thinking only about surviving this month or this pay cycle. You start thinking about future you, the person receiving today's discipline. That shift is bigger than it sounds, because identity is changing. Most people ask, can I afford this thing today? Investors ask, what could this money become if I hold it? At first, the numbers feel tiny, almost insulting compared with the effort. You invest $100, and nothing dramatic happens at all. The market moves a little, and your profit might be lunch money. So naturally you think, what is the point of all this? But the first power of investing is not the return. The first power is that it changes you from consumer to owner. You are becoming someone who owns pieces of productive assets. Even a small investment changes your relationship with every future dollar. A piece of your income now belongs to future freedom. Every payday, money moves before your impulses get a chance. That is how the habit forms, quietly and repeatedly. At this level, you learn emotional control more than analysis. Markets move constantly, but you do not have to copy them. Consistency beats excitement, especially when the amounts still feel small. Level 3. The first meaningful portfolio. Level 3 is when your portfolio starts to feel genuinely real. It is not life-changing yet, but it is no longer pretend. It becomes meaningful because you remember what it took to build. Maybe the number is 10,000 and it already feels serious. Maybe it is 50,000 and volatility suddenly feels personal. Maybe it is 100,000 and the base finally looks solid. The exact number depends on your income, lifestyle, and starting point. But the feeling is the same. This is now real money. This is no longer a hobby or a few random buys. It is becoming a financial base that can support future decisions. Now your portfolio can move more in one day than you saved in a week. That feels exciting when the number moves in your favor. It also feels uncomfortable when the same number moves against you. Nothing physical happened. Your job, house, and life are still there. But on paper, money disappeared, and your emotions react instantly. This is where maturity gets tested, because volatility becomes personal. Volatility is no longer a concept you hear about online. It is emotional, because now you have something worth protecting. You start deciding who you are when the screen turns red. Are you someone who panics because discomfort feels like danger? Are you someone who chases hype because patience feels boring? Or are you someone with a plan you can actually follow? This is also where lifestyle creep quietly starts knocking. The gap between earning and spending is still the engine. If you protect that gap, wealth finally begins moving with momentum. Level 4. The investor mindset. Level 4 is where investing changes how you see almost everything. You do not just ask, can I afford this today? You start asking, what is the opportunity cost of this decision? That question changes everything because every dollar now has a future. You see what money could become if you leave it alone. You see the time, freedom, and options hidden inside ordinary spending. But this mindset can become unhealthy if you take it too far. Some people become so obsessed with investing that they forget to live. They calculate every coffee, every dinner, every tiny bit of joy. They feel guilty about spending money even when the spending is reasonable. That is not freedom, even if the spreadsheet looks impressive. It is just another way for money to control your mood. The goal is not to hate spending or worship frugality. The goal is to spend on purpose without lying to yourself. Some spending is waste and it needs to be cut. Some spending is comfort and comfort has a place in life. Some spending is convenience and convenience can protect energy. Some spending is status and status should be questioned carefully. Some spending is investment because it improves your future capacity. At this level, you start thinking seriously about increasing income. There is a limit to frugality because you can only cut so much. But income has no fixed ceiling if your skills keep growing. You invest in skills, tools, health, relationships, and better judgment. Sometimes the highest returning asset is your ability to earn more. Investing becomes a way of allocating your whole life, not just money. Level 5. Assets start buying time. Level 5 is where investing starts becoming genuinely exciting. Your assets begin buying you time, even if only in small pieces. Maybe your portfolio starts producing income you did not directly work for. Maybe your property has equity that gives you future options. Maybe your business generates profit while you are not actively working. Maybe your super balance becomes large enough that it finally feels real. Or maybe your investments grow by more than you can save. This is where compounding stops sounding theoretical and starts feeling personal. Before this level, you were mostly pushing the snowball yourself. Now the snowball begins rolling with you, not without you yet. That changes your psychology because the future no longer looks fixed. You realize work may not have to be forever in the same form. For years, the deal seemed simple and almost impossible to question. Work, pay bills, get older, and hopefully retire one day. But now that old assumption starts cracking in front of you. You begin to see alternatives that used to feel unrealistic. Maybe you could work part-time later and still be secure. Maybe you could choose a lower-stress job without panic. Maybe you could start a business and survive the early stage. Maybe you could take a year off without destroying your life. Maybe you could say no more often and mean it. Options appear, and they change how life feels day to day. Options are one of the greatest forms of wealth. You are not financially free yet, but you are much stronger. You are no longer fragile in the way you used to be. Level 6. Financial independence becomes visible. Level 6 is when financial independence becomes visible on the horizon. You are not necessarily retired, and you may not want to be. You might still care deeply about work, achievement, and building things. But now you can see the shape of freedom ahead. Your investments can cover a meaningful part of your life. Maybe not everything, and maybe not forever without planning, but enough to change the power dynamic between you and money. Work feels different when you do not desperately need the next paycheck. You may still care about your career, but from a stronger position. You may still work hard, but the fear feels different. Fear is no longer the main driver behind every decision. That changes how you carry yourself in rooms and negotiations. You speak more honestly because silence is no longer survival. You negotiate better because you are not terrified of losing everything. You leave bad situations faster because staying is no longer compulsory. You stop tolerating disrespect just because income is attached to it. Investing has bought leverage over your own life and choices. This does not mean laziness, comfort, or checking out. Many people become more productive because survival stress is gone. They finally have room to build with a longer time horizon. Your definition of wealth starts changing at this level. It becomes control over your calendar, not just your balance. It becomes control over attention, energy, environment, and relationships. What is the point of being rich if everyone still owns your time? In the quiet, you finally hear yourself more clearly. Level 7. Work becomes optional. Level 7 is the level most people imagine when they hear freedom. Work becomes optional, which sounds simple until it actually happens. It does not mean you never work again or become lazy. It means paid work becomes a choice instead of a requirement. Your assets can support your lifestyle with careful planning and discipline. This is financial freedom, but freedom can feel stranger than expected. Because freedom removes pressure, but it also removes excuses. You spent years chasing it, assuming everything would become simple. Then one day the question becomes, now what do I do? Work was not just income, even if you thought it was. Work was structure, because it told your week where to go. Work was identity, because it gave you a role to play. Work was social connection, even when the workplace was imperfect. Work was progress because tasks created a feeling of forward motion. So freedom needs design, or the empty space becomes confusing. Otherwise, you can be financially free and emotionally bored. That is why some people keep working after they no longer need to. Not because they have to, but because meaningful effort feels alive. They want challenge, because comfort alone eventually becomes flat. They want creation, because making things gives energy back. They want contribution, because being useful still matters after money. Now they can choose the game instead of being trapped in one. They can travel slowly, train, learn, build, mentor, and create. The best luxuries become simple, because your nervous system finally relaxes. A calm morning, a flexible calendar, and people you love become enough. Level 8. Wealth becomes influence. Level 8 is when wealth becomes influence beyond your own life. Your money is no longer just protecting you from downside. It can shape outcomes for people, projects, communities, and businesses. You can fund ideas that would otherwise never get started. You can back people before the world takes them seriously. You can invest in businesses and help them become real. You can support family, but support now requires judgment. You can donate meaningfully instead of only wishing you could help. You can create jobs, which means other people's stability is involved. You can build things that outlast your direct involvement. This is a completely different level of responsibility and self-awareness. Earlier, investing was mostly personal and defensive. The question was, can I survive this stage of life? Then the question became, can I grow from here? Then it became, can I become free one day? Now the question is bigger, and it should feel heavier. What does my capital actually do in the world around me? Every dollar supports something, whether you notice it or not. A company, a founder, a market, a technology, or an industry. A behavior, an incentive, a future, and sometimes a problem. This is stewardship, which is a different word from ownership. Capital is power, and power should never be handled casually. At this level, wisdom matters more than confidence. Wealth magnifies who you already are, for better or worse. The goal was to become free enough to be useful. Level 9. Legacy. The final level is legacy, where the time horizon stretches beyond you. Investing is no longer mainly about your own lifetime. It is about what continues after your direct involvement ends. That might mean family wealth handled with maturity and care. It might mean a business that keeps creating value without you. It might mean a foundation, a cause, or a long-term mission. It might mean teaching what you learned the hard way. It might mean changing an industry, even in a small corner. It might mean children who understand money better than you did. Legacy is not only what you leave behind in documents. Legacy is what you set in motion while you're here. At this level, the numbers can be enormous and impressive, but the questions become surprisingly simple and deeply human. What mattered when the chase finally became quiet? Who did I become while trying to build all of this? Who did I help when I had the power to help? What did I build that was worth the time it cost? What did my money make possible for people besides me? There is a sad version of this story that happens often. Someone wins the money game and everyone else can see it, but they lose health, family, values, and peace along the way. That is not success, even if the scoreboard says otherwise. The better version uses investing as a tool for life, not as an identity, costume, or substitute for meaning. You build security, options, freedom, and finally impact. The next honest move. So the question is not just, how much money do I want? The better question is, what level am I actually at today? And what is the next honest move from that exact level? Maybe it is tracking your spending without judgment for the first time. Maybe it is building a small emergency fund before chasing returns. Maybe it is investing every payday, even when the amount feels small. Maybe it is increasing your income through skills, leverage, or better work. Maybe it is resisting lifestyle creep when your income finally rises. Maybe it is simplifying your portfolio because complexity is hiding insecurity. Maybe it is taking less risk because you have something to protect. Maybe it is taking more ownership of your life and decisions. Wherever you are, start there, because pretending wastes time. Investing is not one giant leap that changes everything overnight. It is a staircase, and every stair has a purpose. The people who win are usually not sprinting hardest for 1 month. They keep climbing for years, even when the progress looks boring. One level at a time, with the lesson actually learned. One decision at a time, especially when nobody's watching. $1 at a time, repeated until the result looks inevitable. At level 0, money controls your life and narrows your world. At level 1, it gives breathing room and a little dignity. At level 2, it starts working quietly in the background. By level 5, it starts buying back pieces of your time. By level 9, it becomes legacy and something bigger than you. And one day, money is no longer directing you. You are directing it.